Wildlife by Cynthia DeFelice, Chapter 8. Eric couldn't stay put, despite his promise to Oma. He went back out to the barn, where the dog remained curled up by the hay bales. Eric approached slowly, speaking softly. The dog's brown eyes found his, and didn't waver as he walked up and knelt down. Now that he was a little more calm, Eric noticed that the dog wasn't wearing a collar. Did that mean it was a stray? Its ribs showed clearly, and Eric wondered how many days it had been suffering, hungry, yet unable to eat because of the quills. With great care he reached out and gently stroked the dog's side. "The vet is on his way, boy," he said. "Hang on." It seemed as if hours passed before Eric heard a car pull into the driveway. He got up and watched from the barn door as Oma's friend dropped her off. Just seconds later the vet arrived, and Eric called them both over to the barn. Oma introduced him to Dr. Bob, and they all went inside to where the dog lay. Dr. Bob examined it quickly. "It's bad, but I've seen worse," he said cheerfully. "Eric, I'll need you to hold her still while I pull out the quills." "Me?" Eric asked with surprise. He didn't anticipate being asked to help. "Oh, Doc, I don't know," Oma said uncertainly. "Is that safe? I don't recognize this dog. I don't think it belongs to anybody I know. I can't have anything happen to Eric. He's my daughter Darlene's boy, you know." "Don't worry, Grace. She seems very good-natured," Dr. Bob answered, echoing the very thing that Eric had sensed about the dog. And he had called the dog a she. "Sorry, girl," Eric murmured. "I didn't realize." "Some dogs react to pain and fear with aggression," Dr. Bob went on. "But I think she's going to be okay." Looking at Oma, he added, "If I'm wrong, I'll take her back to my office and anesthetize her. But, in my opinion, it probably won't be necessary. Compared to some dogs I've seen, the Porky let her off easy." "Well, Doc, you know best," said Oma. "But I'm going back to the house. I can't bear to watch." Dr. Bob, speaking in the same low, soothing voice Eric had tried to use before, positioned the dog and showed Eric how to hold her. "Keep talking to her," he said. Eric did as he was told. Dr. Bob drew a pair of forceps from his bag. Gripping firmly onto the base of the first quill, he pulled hard and fast. The dog flinched violently and yelped. The sound wrenched Eric's heart, but he got hold of her again, gently but firmly, and kept up a steady stream of comforting words. One by one, Dr. Bob carefully and methodically pulled out the rest of the quills. "The small ones are the hardest," he explained as he worked. "They're the ones that tend to break off. She's lucky. This must have been a pretty quick encounter. There aren't any in her tongue." Eric shuddered at the thought. "Sometimes," the vet continued quietly, "if the dog shakes the porcupine, the quills will get in their ears and all along the sides of their face and neck. Then if they start to roll to relieve the pain, they end up driving the quills in farther." Eric held on, very glad that this dog had been smart enough not to roll. He was happy, too, to note that after the first few quills were out, she had begun to settle down. Never once did he fear she was going to bite him. Rather, she turned her head toward him for a moment with a look so full of trust, he had the feeling that, if she could talk, she would have said, "I know you don't mean to hurt me. I know you're trying to help." "Such a brave girl," he crooned. "Such a brave pup you are. Hang on now, it won't be much longer. Hang on, that's right. Hang on, that's good. Hang on. Good girl." Dr. Bob continued to talk to Eric as he worked. A lot of people think porcupines are nasty animals and that they actually shoot or throw their quills, but the truth is, they're gentle little guys who just want to be left alone. A person or another animal has to come in direct contact with their tail in order to get stuck. "Those quills have barbs, right?" Eric asked. Dr. Bob held up a quill so Eric could get a close look. There was no hook on the end, as he had imagined. The tip looked stiff, sharp, and pointy. "Another myth," Dr. Bob said, matter-of-factly. There are tiny microscopic scales that point backward, but no actual barbs. Thank goodness, he added. They're the devil to get out as it is. Finally, it was over. Dr. Bob gave the dog an injection of antibiotics. Then he swabbed her face with alcohol, which she didn't like at all, followed by some antibiotic cream, which she seemed to like a lot. Dr. Bob laughed as she licked off all the cream he had just applied. The shot'll take care of any infection. Now her face might be a little swollen tonight, but that's normal. Okay, Eric said uncertainly. Dr. Bob said, that's assuming you are going to take care of her until her owner shows up. He looked at Eric, eyebrows raised in a question. I'd like to, Eric said, but, well, I guess it's up to my grandmother. Let's go ask her, said Dr. Bob. They stood up, and so did the dog. Come on, girl, Eric said. He wasn't certain she'd follow him to the house, but she did. Oma met them in the kitchen door. Can she come in? Eric asked. Oma hesitated, then nodded. Inside, the dog sniffed around a bit, then came and stood by Eric's side. Dr. Bob said to Oma, that went really well, and I think she's going to be fine. Eric here says he's willing to take care of her for now, if that's okay with you. Otherwise, I can take her with me. Oma's eyes grew wide, then blinking nervously, she said, well, I don't know. I've never seen this pup before, but I doubt it will be long until we track down her owner, Dr. Bob went on. I thought maybe she was a stray, said Eric. No, I think she must have slipped her collar. She's a purebred German short-haired pointer. Pheasant season just opened, and sharp-tailed grouse season's been open for a while, so probably someone was hunting birds with her. Whoever it was will still be looking for her, I'm sure. She's a valuable dog. Oma considered this, a concerned expression on her face. Please, Oma, Eric whispered. Can I? It's just that, well, we haven't had a dog in over 30 years. When our dog Elvis died, Big Darrell said, no more dogs. So, I don't know. Her voice drifted off again, and she looked worried. I'll ask him, Eric rushed to say. The words were out before he realized it. The idea of facing Big Darrell was a request that was more than a little intimidating. But he couldn't let the dog leave with Dr. Bob. If she left, Eric would never see her again. He knew it. Oma looked at him, her lips creased with worry. Then she turned to Dr. Bob, let out a long breath, and asked, It'll most likely just be the one night, you think? Sometimes people abandon dogs, and that could be what's happened here. But as I said, I doubt someone would do that with a purebred pointer. A day or two should tell the story. She may have already been reported missing. I'll check with the police and Humane Society and my colleagues when I get back to the office. Well, then, I suppose... Before she could think it over further, Eric wrapped her small frame in a hug. Thanks, Oma. Afterwards, she looked flustered, but pleased. Well, that's settled then, Dr. Bob said. If nobody's claimed her by Monday, bring her in. I'll want to check her over anyway to make sure she's healing the way she should. If you want, you can leave her with me then, and I'll see what I can do about finding her a home. Oma nodded, looking relieved. Right now, she could use a good meal and plenty of water. She's not emaciated, but she's pretty thin. Probably hasn't been able to eat since she tangled with that porcupine. Hey, Doc, said Eric. You called her a pup. How old is she anyway? Well, I'd say she's right around a year, give or take a month or two. Eric reached down to give the dog a pat and murmured, Poor puppy. He and Oma thanked the vet, and Eric offered to pay him out of his own allowance money. Dr. Bob shook his head and smiled. No charge. I'm glad I could help. After they said their goodbyes, Eric knelt beside the dog. She licked his face. He laughed, and she looked at him with her left eyebrow lifted, which made her look so funny. He laughed again. She answered with a sing-songy little howl, then danced backward for a few steps before coming back to lie down with her head in his lap. Eric rubbed behind her ears and felt her body relax under his touch. Then she closed her eyes in what looked like pure contentment. Until that very moment, Eric hadn't even known that he wanted a dog. But he wanted this dog so much, it hurt to think of giving her up. He didn't know how it was possible to feel so concerned about a creature he'd only known for a couple of hours. But he did. There was a bond between them, the boy and the dog. It had been forged in the moments when their eyes held as the quills were being removed. Eric knew she felt it too. She was his. Stay tuned next time for Chapter 9.